Christopher Nolan, Ava DuVernay, Baz Luhrmann, Ryan Coogler, etc. didn't start and get to where they are today by only ever making good things. YouTubers Casey Neistat, Peter McKinnon, D4Darius, MKBHD, Yes Theory did not get to where they are today by only ever making good things. Photographers Mango Street, Manny Ortiz, Jared Poland, Ted Forms from The Art of Photography did not get where they are today by only ever making good things. You know what I'm talking about. Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. Today we're talking about making specifically, we're talking about the steps, how to actually get to where you want to be one day with the creative process, with making things, with being a filmmaker, a YouTuber, a photographer, etc., etc. Mostly I'm going to be sharing my story, some of my work in the past, where I'm going towards right now, what I'm striving to be now, and hopefully that experience goes ahead and helps you along your journey in starting this craft and joining the club and getting the ball rolling. So first and foremost, I actually started my first movie ever. Much like other people, it was a home video. So it was something that was just siblings of mine and myself getting together, getting a little camcorder and messing around. This is what really sparked my interest. We had an old Windows Toshiba laptop. It's the only laptop in our house at the time, and there was Windows Movie Maker on it, and I remember that was like the main driver that began what we know today pretty much as my channel, my work, everything. I remember one of the first things I ever made was actually a stop and go animation, and it was like a snake game. I pretty much took all my Wii games and made them do like Snake, and they like moved around. And then I also did like the old like Blockbuster, not Blockbuster, sorry, RIP Blockbuster, but the old like, you know, there was a bar right here, the ball would bounce off, it'd go ahead and hit a block and then it'd come back down. And that's pretty much how I got started. We had an old HD flip cam that I pretty much convinced my dad to buy because he didn't know much about cameras and we were trying to get something new, and he asked me what I thought, and I remember going to the store and I was just like, it says HD, it's got to be good. And we went ahead and pretty much bought the flip cam, which was the first camera I ever had, first camera I ever used, and the first camera I actually created with. And these videos, these movies were not anything like spectacular. They were just like me and my brother most of the time, but family in general, getting together, throwing on like a really, really bad costume, having no lighting whatsoever, and just creating stuff. Our scripts would be written on like pieces of paper. A lot of it was improv, and the rest is pretty much history. They weren't like great works, but it started the process, and I started to begin and develop this passion and this love for something, that being filmmaking. So I love filmmaking. So those are pretty much some of the short films that I made, short movies, home videos, whatever you want to call them. The point is that I began doing the mechanics of making something with a camera, putting it into some sort of editing software, cutting, splicing, adding music, changing color, and then exporting it out for people to see. That all began in 8th grade. Yeah, it was 8th grade. From there, I pretty much went on to high school, and there was a TV production class. So it wasn't specifically filmmaking, it was more focused on television production. But because there wasn't a lot you could do with TV production, it pretty much was a filmmaking class. They just didn't call it filmmaking, they call it TV production, which never made any sense because it was more like film, but whatever. Point is that I started there. Pretty much my freshman year, I took TV 1, and then TV 2 was the highest level course you could actually take, so I ended up taking that my senior year. So freshman year, I took TV production 1, and it was a very bare bones class. We sort of learned how to use iMovie, not a lot. I never had a Mac back then, so I was just super versatile in Windows Movie Maker and didn't know anything at all about Apple or iMovie or anything of that sort. Windows Movie Maker is pretty much what I used because I didn't have a Mac back then. Fast forwarding to my senior year is when I really got into TV production too. We had a new TV teacher and he was great. He was awesome. I still keep in touch with him to this day. He was one of the main inspirations for me actually going into film. And I remember just being like, you know, what I want to study in college. Like everyone I sort of thought like had some sort of talent that they've been honing since they were a kid. Like people were on soccer teams, they could sing, they could play an instrument, and I felt like my light just died. And I had nothing like that. So I felt real bad because I was just like, there's all these people who have already been like started beginning this process and getting good at something, and here's me who has nothing. And then one day I remember it just hit me. I was walking down the hall and I was like, filmmaking. That's my thing. That's what I'm good at. That's what I've been doing since I was a kid, is filmmaking. And then I went ahead and decided to study digital cinema at DePaul University. That's my degree. But finishing up high school, that same teacher I just told you about ended up inviting me to this program over at Gallery 37 downtown in the Loop here in Chicago. And it was a program for students in the summer that went to high school in the city. And pretty much I ended up going there. We just worked on making a film, pretty much. This whole program was centered around making movies, making films. Whereas in the past, it was always just like, there was a bunch of kids who thought TV would be an easy class, so they went ahead and took it because they thought it'd be a blow off. And this was, for the first time ever, students who actually came and joined this program, not because they thought it was going to be a blow off, but because they actually wanted to do film. So this was one of those first experiences where it was just like, okay, we're actually writing a script, we're actually like thinking about shots and everything. And I say that knowing that this film was still terrible. It was awful. It was garbage. Me and the crew that worked on it were really, really inspired by Breaking Bad at the time. So we made a very, very bad version. The story was great, but pretty much the actual execution of it was bad. The lighting was terrible. We had fake props, really bad, obviously plastic looking guns that we used. And I actually didn't realize this, but I accidentally ended up writing a scene similar to that in The Godfather, that when I told my teacher, who was the same one from my high school, about, he was like, you just like copied this from The Godfather. And I was like, I've never seen that movie. Because it was true. At the time I had not seen the movie. I just wrote the scene. Pretty much our main character goes before a meeting with someone, hides a gun in the bathroom, and then when actually meeting with them, goes to use the bathroom, grabs that gun, and then assassinates the character he's meeting with. Pretty much the Godfather scene, same idea, but I had never actually seen it. So when my teacher told me that this is a scene like straight out of The Godfather, I took that as a huge compliment because I was like, I've never even seen that movie. I just wrote this because it was in my head. Two things: A, wasn't original, but B, I thought it was being original, and there was actually a very successful movie that wrote the same exact thing. So all positives coming out of high school, feeling really confident about my film abilities and everything that I'm doing. Oh, and I forgot to mention, I gave George Lucas a presentation on screenwriting. True story. True story. After that, the next big film that I would sort of work on was in college, and it was kind of a bust. It kind of didn't work out. It was my first larger scale project. A lot of friends working on it, and once again, pretty much a similar situation to what was going on at Gallery 37, but on a larger scale now, with a lot of students who were interested in filmmaking, a lot of students who were interested in creating stuff, and pretty much I did not know anything that I was doing at all. It was a film called Charlie Mays, and it actually never ended up getting made because some footage was lost and the production was just kind of like after that. But it was a good, hard, bittersweet first lesson to always back up your footage, always, and just, I guess, study more, know more. It was one of those situations where it was just trial by error, and there were a lot of errors, and thank goodness it was a trial, because if there was any money on the line that wasn't my own, because I bought pizza for like crew members and stuff, which is terrible. Don't buy pizza for your crew, actually feed them properly. But back then I didn't know what I was doing. You know, it could have been very costly. Hard lessons, not a lot of money on the line, just kind of like people's time and stuff like that. But we're all students, so you know, that happens. It happens. It happened to me. It'll probably happen to you, or maybe it won't happen to you. Take this message seriously. Back up your footage and do as much research as you can so that you have everything structured, everything organized, and everyone's on the same page, or minimize the amount of mistakes that you're possibly going to make. After that, I did a bunch of other projects throughout the years that I was there, and they ranged. Some things were bigger with professors that brought me onto projects, and a lot of other things were smaller from just more student work and things of that sort. The biggest thing was just always making stuff, always creating, always just trying to do whatever. The one thing I would say I regret, one thing, is that I didn't do more YouTube in college. I would say that flat out. Even just uploading everything, not everything, because some of them were really bad, but talking about the actual experience and just documenting the process of making stuff, I think could have been big. But I did YouTube a little bit. I could have done it a lot more. So if you're in college right now and you're thinking about whether or not you should actually do that, definitely do it. Also, YouTube's better than Vimeo. I said it. We all know it. I'm just don't want to say it. Moving on. One of my favorite projects I would have come to work on at DePaul was called Untitled. Working title. It was called Working Title. I think I'd remember the name to my own movie. There's been so many. There's been a lot. Working Title. Just a short film for a class once again, and pretty much there was this guy, this writer who has no inspiration, ends up losing his dog, gets inspiration by finding his dog, gets in a fight with someone, and then the rest is history. That was actually one of my favorite films to work on. It was just very quick, concise, straight to the point, a fun story. And that was for one of the first times, maybe not the first time, I don't know, that was one of the key moments in my head that when I think about, hey, like, I could actually do this. Me and a crew can actually do this. Or this feels right. This movie feels right. Everything, the way it flows and stuff, it all feels good. That was one of the productions that actually made me feel that way. Just the way it was cut, the way we wrote it, the whole process, the collaborative effort. It was one where I was like, this is doable. This is a thing that can be done. And that might sound kind of like ridiculous or whatever, but honestly, when you're just starting out and you're just trying to figure out, what you're doing, and you're not really sure, and you're getting advice from people like me online, any sort of like information, any sort of success in your own way is one that's just going to further encourage you and further make you feel like you could do this. Because guess what? You can do it. And if I could do it, you could do it. And trust me, there's a lot of things that almost made me not do it. So if I could do it, you could do it. Throughout this process, I had a lot of inspirations, a lot of things, a lot of creators that I would watch that kept me in the flow, in the rhythm, that made me want to make more and just keep being stubborn about actually trying to create. Because it's very easy to not want to. It's very easy to succumb. Big words, look at me. It's very easy to succumb to like the laziness, and not even laziness, but just like not being motivated and not wanting to do it, and just feeling like so many other things you'd rather do than actually try to create a project. Some of those, at least back then, were kind of hilarious, but soccer compilations on YouTube were a big one that, just editing skill wise, I would watch soccer compilations, proper football for all my non-USA fans. I would watch these videos, and it's usually EDM, right? But there would be like a beat drop, and then that's when Messi would score a goal, or they'd show a clip of Ronaldo scoring a goal, and they'd change the colors, or the screen would shake, and just all this stuff. And I always thought it was so cool. Like, it always looked so cool. So I tried to make my own for Team USA, the United States men's national team. All right, don't hate, okay? We got Krista Pulisic, don't hate. That's one thing that just kept me inspired to edit, and I experimented with and learned a lot of tips and tricks while like just trying to like actually do that. It was just, another step, another thing, another creator, and another as EJ Khaled would say, another one that kept me in the rhythm, in the flow, and inspired me to create more. And for me, I really see it as something that just never stops. I can't ever imagine myself stopping this process. As long as I could hit record on this, and I can I like this mic, but honestly, there's a mic on there. So as long as I could ever hit record on this, I can't ever imagine myself stopping. And I don't think anyone should stop. I think if you're in the creative process, if you're in the creative field, if you want to be a content creator, if you want to be anything of that sort, you have to keep going. Things change, things update, and you should be changing with them. You should be updating with them. But it's also fun. Like, you get to add, you get to be a part of this grand collaboration. Like, YouTube blows my mind because there's just so many things going on, and we all just get to share and engage with it and talk about it. And I have an abbreviation, came up with an abbreviation specifically for this video for you guys. It is ABC. Always be creating. Now, again, I don't know if that's original. Pretty sure someone's probably made it up before, but at least for me and for my purposes and for what I'm going to use it for, always be creating. Always be creating. Always be creating. ABC, my friends. ABC is the only way to go, and I hope that by me sharing my stories, me sharing my experiences, me showing my sort of like documented summary of my process, I hope it helps you. I hope it's something that is just another thing, another tool for your tool belt. And with that being said, as cliche as it sounds, if you're watching this and you're thinking about how to get started, where to get started, who to get started with, whatever, as cliche as it sounds, and it sounds very, very cliche because it is, you just have to get started. Boo! I know. But honestly, you just have to get started. All right. Once again, my name is Josue, and I live in Chicago, the greatest city in the world. See you guys in the next video.